Aspen is probably the most contentious and yet the most loving group of characters of any city in the world. And as many people as you'll find in favor of something, you'll find just as many who are opposed to it.
Passion is what this town is about. I think that the level to which people talk about this has so much to do with the choice they made to live here in this spectacular setting.
Aspen thrives on deep, serious argument.
All of the people that I know in Aspen want to be inclusive, yet we are constrained physically and therefore can't be. And we all want to be the one who's walking down the street barefooted and not worrying about traffic. It's part of our birthright, regardless of where we were born.
Another way. Quieter, nicer elections have been. We need to dedicate enough already. Get around traffic. I'm stuck in traffic.
So how did we get here? We'll be looking at the facts. The public purchase of 5 properties at the entrance to Aspen and more than 25 ballot elections over 36 years. But we'll also be talking to people about the undercurrents of the community, the values and motivations, and just plain quirkiness that got us to where we are today.
In 1891, a massive ore processing facility called the Holden Lixiviation Works was built just across Castle Creek from the end of Main Street. That same year, the state of Colorado built a bridge linking Hallam Street with points west. Apparently, Aspen's mining heritage contributed to the formation of what we know today as the S-curves.
When I first came to town, there were no stoplights. Traffic and parking were not an issue. There was a 4-way stop at the Jerome Hotel at Mill and Main. You could always park all day long anywhere you wanted to, and in fact leave your car open. And so the automobile and its impacts were not really present then. The awareness of the entrance to Aspen, I think, came about when the number of cars coming in and out of 2 lanes to Aspen started experiencing traffic jams.
Through much of the 20th century, the land we know as the entrance to Aspen was used mostly for pasture. That began to change in 1970 when county voters said yes to a 4-lane highway, while city voters established a new sales tax to buy open space.
Pitkin County ballot question, November 1970. Do you desire to have a 4-lane highway on Highway 82 between Brush Creek Road and Maroon Creek Road as proposed by the State Highway Department?
Yeah.
City of Aspen ballot question, November 1970. Shall the city adopt a 1% sales tax for land acquisition, including open space?
Yeah. In 1971, the city used open space funds to buy 187 acres for $3.7 million, which would later become the City of Aspen Golf Course. In 1972, the city used open space funds to buy 80 acres known as the Thomas property for $915,000 and bought another 6.8 acres for $74,000 in 1975. In 1973, a group of hang glider and paraglider pilots reached an agreement with the city to establish a landing area on the Thomas property. In 1978, the Aspen Community Garden was established on the Thomas property. Today, there are 20 people on a waiting list. In 1981, the City Council approved the Castlewood Headgate subdivision on property owned by the Merle family, allowing 70 units of employee housing and 30 units of free market housing. At the same time, a 150-foot right-of-way was dedicated to the city for the potential future extension of Main Street. Just a few months later, the Aspen Growth Management Foundation filed a lawsuit claiming the council's approval of the subdivision was improper and capricious. While the lawsuit was pending, City Council asked voters if they wanted a highway over the Thomas and Merle properties.
City of Aspen ballot question, November 1982. Shall the council be authorized to convey the right-of-way across the Thomas property for 2 or 4 laning of Highway 82 to 7th and Main, as the council may determine?
No.
I think in the 70s the entrance was a lot more symbolic than it is today, and the reason is what the entrance represented. The entrance was one of your last walls to knock them down, drag them out, build them up development. And that included lots and lots of cars having to get from A to B as fast as they could. You know, God help us should we have to slow down to 20 miles an hour to go around to some pesky curves.
I do think that people see things like making it a straight shot, large homes, as a symbol of losing what was important to their town and the uniqueness of their town.
In 1983, the city bought the Merle property for $2.1 million in open space funds. The approval for the Castlewood Headgate subdivision was withdrawn and the lawsuit dropped. From that point on, the approval of Aspen voters would be required to use the Merle property for anything but open space.
At the same time, city staff recommended keeping the right-of-way for an extension of Main Street in the future, but City Council decided to eliminate it because the Merle property was bought with open space funds.
It's a prize, and people are trying to keep their arms around the prize and hold on to what's making it special. And I think this debate about how do we enter this town, do we want a 4-lane coming in here, represents a major change to that perception of how you treat this jewel. It's complicated.
In the mid-1980s, Pitkin County voters clearly expressed their interest in widening Highway 82 into Aspen, but a city election went the other way by only 10 votes.
Pitkin County ballot question, November 1984. Shall Highway 82 be improved to a 4-lane facility between Basalt and Brush Creek Road?
Yeah.
Pitkin County ballot question, November 1984. Shall Highway 82 be improved to a 4-lane facility between Brush Creek Road and Aspen?
Yeah.
And then the question was, well, what do we do? And there's really only 2 choices. There's to widen the existing entrance to Aspen through the S-curves. The other choice was termed the straight shot. And the 2 became pitted against each other in a series of elections, which really got us nowhere.
City of Aspen ballot question, August 1986. Shall the City Council be authorized to implement a 4-lane highway over existing open space connecting with 7th and Main Street if CDOT compensates the city for open space, the area between the new alignment and Cemetery Lane becomes open space? A curved alignment reduces vehicle speeds into the city, and a new stoplight is placed at the intersection of 7th and Main.
No.
City of Aspen ballot question, August 1986. Shall the City Council be authorized to implement a 4-lane highway over existing open space and widen the S-curves to a minimum of 4 lanes?
No.
Back in the late 60s, 70s, and on into the 80s, Aspen was going through a transitional period. All of those people who lived in Aspen made decisions. Those decisions were made for, by, and around them. They were firefighters, they were nurses, they were doctors, they were ditch diggers, they were plumbers. They made the decisions that mattered to them. As the years pass by there, those people have disappeared. They've either moved or gone away or passed away. And the people that have replaced them moved here for a quality of life that they didn't want to change. That quality of life was perfect. And I know that because I was here. It was a utopian atmosphere. It was wonderful. Everything was perfect. Climate was perfect. Happiness, partying, whatever it was. And they didn't want to change a thing. No reason to. So this balance between what's practical and needed by the community and what is aesthetically pleasing and the thing that we value inherently in our hearts, two different issues.
People have moved here who either have stayed here, have moved here. They've made a lot of sacrifices to be here. And they make those sacrifices for their values. And so they're pretty outspoken about their values. They're not just drifting along in some town. They made a conscious decision to be here for specific reasons. And I think they're going to fight harder for those reasons.
In the early 90s, the EPA required that Aspen take steps to improve its air quality, and air pollution has been part of the entrance to Aspen debate ever since. In February 1990, city voters approved a $6 million bond to build the 100-unit Merle Ranch affordable housing at the south edge of the property, with 74% in favor of the project. In 1991, the city leased part of the Merle property to the Aspen Historical Society to establish the Holden Merle Mining and Ranching Museum. In 1992, Pitkin County bought the 65-acre Moore property for $3 million. It was heralded as providing a permanent open space to define the edge of the urban area. On the subject of transportation, the first action of the decade focused on a 4-lane highway.
City of Aspen ballot question, February 1990. Shall the City Council be authorized to grant right-of-way over city land, including open space, to 4-lane Highway 82 on 2 possible alignments, either option A, direct connection to 7th and Main, or option B, existing S-curve alignment?
Yes.
Do you prefer option A, option B?
Option A.
Of all the people or political interests involved in this debate, there's been many, and there are many now, but probably the most consistent has been the people who want to 4-lane the highway. You solve traffic congestion by adding capacity to the highway. Done deal.
In December 1991, the federal government approved what's known as ICE-T, requiring that all highway projects examine alternative modes of transit, from bike paths to buses. The next year, county voters narrowly approved funding to study a separate route dedicated to mass transit, and they said no to funding a 4-lane highway.
Pitkin County ballot question, November 1992. Shall Pitkin County increase the sales tax and construction materials use tax to convert diesel buses to cleaner burning alternatives, build park and rides, buy the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad right-of-way for transportation and open space, study a busway, monorail, or light rail connecting Aspen, Snowmass, and Down Valley locations?
Yeah.
I think Aspen is a town with a lot of individuals who came here to be individuals. They maybe didn't want to work in a large corporation or things like that. So definitely it's a town where there's a lot of agendas and a lot of people that feel that their voice should be heard, and they're not always easily swayed by, you know, well, let's just compromise and let's just go forward with the best of the solutions. People want to say, oh wait, there must be something better, so let's debate a little more and come up with even a better answer.
Pitkin County ballot question, November 1993. Shall Pitkin County issue a $13.65 million bond to improve the transit system in the Roaring Fork Valley, specifically to convert diesel buses to cleaner burning alternatives, build park and rides, purchase the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad right-of-way for transportation and open space?
Yeah.
Pitkin County ballot question, November 1994. Shall the county issue a $30 million bond to 4-lane Highway 82 from Basalt to 7th and Main Street if the City of Aspen voters approve the alignment?
No.
I think there's been a debate over the years about how hard to make it to get to Aspen. There was even a proposal once to, seriously, to close Independence Pass in the summer to make it more difficult for people to come, because then they would have to go through Glenwood to get here.
You know, I'm from the East Coast. We have Martha's Vineyard, we have Nantucket, we have Cuttyhunk. Unless you fly into those places, you get on a ferry and you chill out and you decompress. And I think that's the same in the San Juan Islands, that you slow down before you get into town. And I think there's some people here who feel that's not a bad idea.
The first effort to establish a dedicated transit way at the entrance to Aspen also came in 1994, failing by a close margin in the city and a greater margin in the county.
City of Aspen ballot question, November 1994. Shall the Aspen City Council be authorized to convey right-of-way over Merle and Thomas properties for a dedicated transit way from the city to the airport and Snowmass Village?
No.
Pitkin County ballot question, November 1994. Shall the county issue a $21 million bond for a separated, dedicated transit way linking Aspen, the airport, and bus routes to Snowmass Village and Down Valley, and to improve the Owl Creek corridor for mass transit?
No.
My best suggestion for the entrance to Aspen would be to bank the 2 curves coming into town so people didn't have to slow up when they came in. I think that'd be much more efficient.
It's been now, what, 16, 17 years, and they're still talking about it. I still read about it. I still hear about it. I'm for the straight shot.
You can bring 10 lanes into Aspen, but where are you going to go? It's a dead end in the winter. It's a small town.
We should continue to have better public transportation so that it'll be easier for people to choose that instead of driving in themselves.
I rarely drive that, but I feel so sorry for people who do, and I would now vote for a straight shot, with the exception if you ever put a tunnel in, if they ever do a tunnel, I would vote against it.
I think they should leave the highway the way it is. If anything, I'd like to see the train come back.
Any alternative should reduce or eliminate cars in downtown Aspen, because over these years it's become way too congested. There's a poor parking situation here, and I don't think you need new highways to get people in here. I think you need more public transportation to get people in here.
Sometimes it can take a half hour to 45 minutes to get out of town or into town. So my personal opinion is, if there could be a better way, I would advise that.
The parking's really bad here because it's hard to find parking spaces.
I think part of what makes this so difficult is probably that everybody comes to it from a different perspective and in a different time frame. If you moved here in the 70s, you had high hopes and expectations that maybe Aspen could be saved from many of the ravages that were hurting other small towns of traffic congestion and commercialism and freeways. And so there's a vision there of, let's keep this small and simple and pure. And that immediately got into, let's keep a 4-lane highway from coming down and barreling into Aspen. And then I think if you come to it a bit later, you may have come to it from, Well, we've got a lot invested in a community in our transit system, and so maybe we should try and figure out the best way to get the transit system to be better and more efficient. And then some of it may come to, well, I came to Aspen, I got involved with, say, fighting to preserve the last best parts of Aspen, and so I became an open space advocate, and now there's a key chunk of open space in the middle of the discussion. And so that's where I bring my values to. Others may be, well, I just moved here and I've invested a tremendous amount in my home somewhere along the route that people keep discussing, and I really don't want that changed.
In the mid-1990s, the Aspen City Council renewed its effort to bring light rail to Aspen and beyond.
You know, sometime in the mid-90s when Mayor John Bennett and the City Council were looking very seriously at the idea of a light rail service coming into Aspen from the airport, they launched a fact-finding mission to Europe. And the Aspen Times sent me along on our own dime. And we went to Switzerland, France, various ski villages that had qualities in common with Aspen, just to see how they did transit. Up steep hills, in the mountains, moving skiers while also preserving town character. We went to Zermatt, which is a carless village in Switzerland where the Matterhorn is. And we saw their monstrous parking lot several miles outside town, which was where all the cars stopped and parked. And then they brought people into town on mass transit. Town was beautiful.
City of Aspen ballot question, November 1996. Shall City Council be authorized to convey right-of-way over the Merle and Thomas properties for a 2-lane parkway, a corridor for light rail, and a 400-foot cut-and-cover tunnel?
Yes.
After a 5-year public process costing $3 million, the Federal Highway Administration and the Colorado Department of Transportation issued a preferred alternative in 1998 as part of the official record of decision. It called for a 2-lane highway and a dedicated transitway, much like the one approved by city voters in 1996. If local funding were not available for light rail, the preferred alternative called for exclusive bus lanes to be developed instead. At the same time, local governments were exploring ways of bringing a rail system all the way to Glenwood.
City of Aspen and Pitkin County ballot questions, November 1998. Do you support the concept of a valley-wide rail system linking Glenwood to Aspen? City of Aspen?
Yeah.
Pitkin County?
No.
There was a lot of issues. They were controversial. The ballots never seemed to end up conclusively one way or the other.
Pitkin County ballot question, November 1998. Citizens Initiative. If all financing is not approved by the City of Aspen or Pitkin County before November 1999, shall Pitkin County stop spending funds on rail studies until the expansion of 82 between Basalt and Aspen is completed?
Yes.
The debate often seems to start on more polite terms than it evolves into or devolves into. I think people like to think that they can debate this issue sensibly, rationally, but inevitably what I've seen is it ends up very morally charged, very symbolic, and very emotional.
Well, people get so militant about their sides in these issues. I mean, I have people in my office who I have refused to let discuss it in the office for longer than a finite time period because it gets too, you know, I mean, it's just all over the place because neither one of them will back down for a moment about their feelings about the issue, and they're both totally right.
One of the problems that Aspen has as a community now is that there is so much blame, there's so much finger pointing. I wish I could blame one person. I wish I could blame the billionaires, or I wish I could blame the people that have moved down Valley, or you for that matter, or all the mayors, council people. Everybody's pointing a finger. The voters Are they to blame for this? Who's to blame for all of this happening? I don't think you're going to find one scapegoat, and I think that's probably part of the issue. No one really knows why it is we are here.
City of Aspen ballot question, November 1999, Citizens Initiative. Shall the city bond for $20 million to construct a light rail system if rail goes from the city to the airport? Rail extends to Brush Creek if Pitkin County approves a $36 million bond? The defeat of either the city or county bond will result in the construction of an alignment across the Thomas and Merle properties, including exclusive bus lanes that could later become a light rail system?
No.
City of Aspen ballot question, November 1999. Shall the city bond for $16 million for an exclusive busway from Buttermilk to 7th and Main? This approval would allow the city to convey right-of-way for the bus corridor.
No.
As a realtor since the middle 60s, I've been questioned frequently by friends, clients, customers about the difficulty of getting in and out of this town when there seem to be good solutions at hand. And my answer has always been that I think the people who vote on this historically have not been necessarily the people most affected by the problems to the west.
I spent 20 years on McSkimming Road, never having any idea that there was any kind of problem coming into town. And then I moved to Highlands, and now I schedule my entire day around trying not to have hassles.
My perspective on the entrance to Aspen debate changed when I moved down Valley, clearly. Before, I used to live in Aspen, and it was an academic debate about, well, gee, I hope that's something the community figures out. That would be a positive. But I live in Aspen, and so, well, I'm not one of the suckers stuck in traffic. Then you move down Valley, and you're like, well, okay, here I am in traffic. Now it's personal.
I think we're being disrespectful to our bedroom community workers who we absolutely depend on, and we're not factoring them into the entrance to Aspen equation. And they perceive us as being, as a result, sort of snobbish and exclusionary and not caring particularly. We just want their bodies to come and make the beds and clean the toilets and then tell them to get the hell out of here. That's not going to work.
City of Aspen ballot question, November 1999. Given that the valley-wide population will rise from 57,000 to 99,000 by 2020, adding 120,000 auto trips per day, and given that more than 31,000 cars use the Castle Creek Bridge on peak days, what limit on auto trips would you prefer? Today's level?
No.
2% annual growth?
No.
4% annual growth?
No.
Unlimited?
No. Oddly enough, the voters pulled the no lever on every preference in this vote. On the same ballot, the City Council asked another non-binding question.
City of Aspen ballot question, November 1999. Vote yes if you agree with the following. I am concerned that without a comprehensive valley-wide transit system, Aspen will be overwhelmed with traffic. I want the City Council to work with other valley governments to develop a transit plan with design, construction, maintenance, and cost estimates, comparing bus only with a bus-to-rail concept for a bonding vote no later than November 2000.
Yeah.
Again, just a lot of frustration. Well, we're voting on it again, but it's not really going to mean much, and it's not going to solve a whole lot.
I think the roundabout is a great metaphor for political discussion in Aspen and Up Valley. The debate just goes on and on and on. It reminded me of the song lyrics that you can check out, but you can never leave.
an issue can become either a dead duck or it can become a wounded duck that keeps flapping its wings. This was turned into an odd duck to a wounded duck kept flapping its wings because it wouldn't go away.
My biggest frustration is not necessarily that I'm in a traffic jam, it's that I'm driving to a community that is just completely in denial about the experience of the entrance to Aspen. They haven't finished it, they can't talk about it, they can't fix it, they can't let it go.
Players keep coming and the issues keep coming and going, and sometimes the votes turn around and start flying the other way around the circle, but the issues just never leave.
Pitkin County ballot question, November 2000. Shall Pitkin County bond $10.2 million to supplement existing debt of $8.1 million and other local, state, and federal funds to realign 82 to 7th and Main with 2 new bridges and a cut-and-cover tunnel, $7 million for Snowmass Village Transit, $1.5 million for bus stops in Pitkin County, $7.5 million for new buses, a maintenance facility, and affordable housing for RAFTA?
Yes.
City of Aspen ballot question, May 2001. Shall the City Council be authorized to convey right-of-way over the Merle and Thomas properties for a 2-lane parkway and exclusive bus lanes until the community supports rail funding?
No.
When people move to Aspen, they generally, I think, do so out of an idealistic mindset. This is going to be a better place for me. This is a beautiful place. This is a special place. It's nicer than where I'm leaving. And as it changes, you begin perhaps to feel a little threatened. And so everybody brings their idealism to the situation. And the entrance to Aspen debate has frequently come down to, do we want to pave over a meadow? We seem to be left now with this very difficult choice. Well, if you want a separate busway or you want light rail or you want 4 lanes, you're going to have to pave the meadow. And that's just appalling to most people and the values they bring to Aspen. And so we're kind of stuck right there, I think.
We kind of hover in this ideological realm and talk in a lot of platitudes and throw a lot of half-baked slanted statistics at each other, but never really get down to settling some fundamental questions. Who do we want to be? You know, do we want to make it easy to work here? Do we want to make it easy to visit here? Or no?
City of Aspen ballot question, November 2002. Which do you prefer? Modified direct or S-curves? Pitkin County ballot question, November 2002. Which do you prefer? Modified direct or S-curves?
There are some examples that say that towns maintain a character when you have to find your way in. There's an experience to going around the roundabout in Basalt or going through the S-curves here, where you catch glimpses of the West End, and then you come around and you turn into Main Street in the commercial core.
Very quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being no problem at all and 10 being an unbelievable problem, I would say it's an 11. It's way up there. It is way up there. I think that the traffic in this town, specifically created by those S-curves, is destroying the beautiful fabric of Aspen, especially from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock.
It's a difficult question to answer satisfactorily because some people see it as almost a way to control growth. They say, look, if there's a limiting factor, the town of Aspen won't become a city like Chicago.
Everybody shares an interest in just having a town that works. And right now, there's a lot of frustration bubbling out there around the roundabout and the S-curves every single morning, at least in the high season. And everybody, no matter who you are, has an interest in being able to get where you're going and enjoy this town on a day-to-day level. Right now, that's not happening. This town makes people mad pretty regularly.
While the ballot elections on highways and transitways have gone back and forth over the years, the one area of agreement has been whether to fund a public transit system.
There have been 5 elections in Pitkin County and 1 in the City of Aspen since 1972 that were only about funding our public transit system. They weren't about highway alignments or dedicated transitways, and they all won by wide margins. In 1972, city voters approved a 1% sales tax for transportation with 63% in favor. In 1981, 58% of county voters favored raising property taxes for transit. Since 1983, county voters have approved higher sales taxes, 2 new bonds, and a regional transit authority, all with 2/3 in favor.
We do have a recent addition to the family, which is a puppy. We actually chose the dog that we did knowing that he could always ride in his little crate and we could still take him on the bus. So that was actually really important to us.
I enjoy the bus, and that doesn't get me out of the traffic jam at the S-curves, but it's more enjoyable than pressing my accelerator every 5 seconds and then stopping. So.
In 2002, the Colorado Department of Transportation gave the Mills Ranch property to the City of Aspen and Pitkin County in exchange for a limited right-of-way across the Merle and Thomas properties. Although the right-of-way is owned by CDOT, it can only be used for 2 general lanes of traffic and light rail, according to the 1996 ballot election in the City of Aspen. It can only be used for other purposes if city voters approve a new use at a future ballot election.
Well, what gives me heart about the future in Aspen is there's no one here who has to be here. Everyone who is here came because they wanted to be here, stayed because they wanted to be here, continues to stay because they want to be here.
Aspen is capable of having an intelligent discussion that recognizes that open space is a very important value to the people of this community. And I think it can also recognize that it can dramatically improve its transit efficiency, and that it can find a way to do both. It can find that keyhole, that narrow path that brings us there.
And the car has become sort of an extra arm for all of us, and I think that's going to be the biggest challenge that we have in general, and that's an American problem, and we are all, we are part of that society and that set of beliefs. I would love to see a different way of thinking.
Unfortunately, the first thing that comes to mind when I ask myself whether this can ever be solved is I don't think everyone will agree to get along, cooperate, and come up with a solution until there's an emergency. That's kind of human behavior. Unless they perceive a real problem that traffic has become so critical to the economic life of this town that we have to fix it.
It's the challenge that goes with limited space and a fabulously beautiful environment that it just can't, in my opinion, really be solved. Everyone wants to be here.
So where do we go from here? As traffic jams persisted in the summer of 2005, the Aspen City Council asked staff to address the issue again. In February 2006, the Federal Highway Administration ruled that the entrance to Aspen Final Environmental Impact Statement of 1997 had to be reevaluated before any alternative could move forward. Soon after, the City of Aspen, Pitkin County, and Snowmass Village approved funding for the re-evaluation. The results are due to be released in November 2006.
This issue taps directly into our values and our identity, no matter which side we're on. The purpose of this documentary is to provide some basic historical information and also to hold a mirror up to the community, to show the wide variety of legitimate interests that surround this debate. I'm Bennett Bramson. Thanks for listening.
We ought to work on getting a little humor into this, seems to me.
I don't know.
It's wagging my ears.
It's always like this.
I got.
There it is. What are you gonna do?